The last shift has finished. The pumps and drilling rigs have closed down. A graveyard of the oil industry, somewhere in Texas. The experts are divided on just when this will come about, but there's no doubt that it's on its way. The end of the oil era.
Europe is mature. The continental shelves of the world are pretty mature. It means they've been drilled up. The United States has about 8 years production left.
It is pretty clear that at some stage over the next 20 years, production is going to peak.
So it doesn't surprise me that you're going to see a U.S. military, because it is the only superpower status military left in the world, being called upon by the global economy as a whole to go into these situations and try to create stability so that those resources can flow.
And the United States could not operate in foreign areas, in these distant locations, Afghanistan and Iraq, without a large supply of oil, because all of the weapons in the U.S. arsenal and all the transport planes and almost all the ships are powered by petroleum.
For superpower USA, global access to dwindling resources is a question of national security. More so than ever, now that a competitor in the global hunt for oil has drawn dangerously close: China. Oil, the world's most sought-after drug. In 2004, the price of crude oil reached record heights on the New York commodities market, an event that made the headlines around the world.
Sind weiter auf dem Vormarsch. In den USA wurde ein Barrel Rohöl erstmals über der Marke von $50
auch jetzt wieder da die, wie es heißt, psychologisch wichtige Marke von $50 pro Barrel.
US crude is trading above $50 a barrel.
Le cours du pétrole a franchi un nouveau sommet aujourd'hui, $50,5 le baril à New York.
Bush had a straightforward solution.
George W. Bush, in the throes of an election campaign, promised action.
And it's driving the price like it did in the past. And the President of the United States must jawbone OPEC members to lower the price.
In George W. Bush's Texan hometown, the oil metropolis of Houston, the reaction is not purely one of protest. Spirits are high on the oil industry's executive floors. Record prices mean record income. In 2004, the industry leaders Exxon, BP, Shell and Total chalk up profits of 51 billion euros, and the future for the oil sector is rosy, according to Gene Van Dyke. This independent oil entrepreneur has spent 50 years in a business that, as he says, has brought him a lot of enjoyment and many millions of dollars.
The day of low-price oil is gone.
Forever.
Forever. As I mentioned, it's the first time that the demand for oil has ever exceeded the supply, and the demand is going up a lot faster than new oil is being found. And so the price of oil is not going to go down. And we just, the world has to live with it.
How we see it at Herald is, if you're not enjoying record profits under the current price scenario, then you probably shouldn't be in business. Because at over $50 a barrel and relatively high natural gas prices, you should be enjoying very high cash flow levels. So what you're seeing is, first and foremost, record high profitability, cash flow levels, and really the great challenge for oil and gas companies currently is how to spend this great amount of capital.
They do have a lot of cash flow. But the problem with at least the large companies, they have a lot more cash flow than they have places to drill.
The The amount of oil coming from the Gulf of Mexico covers only a fraction of demand. More than half the oil needed by the USA now comes from other countries.
It has to import increasing amounts of oil because domestic production is falling and consumption is rising. So what this has meant is what we're seeing now in Iraq, which is, in short, that America's foreign policy and America's energy policy have merged so that they can't be separated. America is in the Persian Gulf because it doesn't have an energy policy, and we're in the Persian Gulf because we can't stay away. This is the future of America's foreign policy, America's military policy for the next 2 decades.
One of the leading experts and author of the standard work on black gold is Daniel Yergin. Oil, he believes, is first and foremost an intrinsic element of national power, the ownership of which gives rise to conflicts and wars.
The answer is to diversify the sources of production so that there will be crises, there will be problems. We've seen it over the last few years, how problems in Nigeria or in Russia or in Venezuela can affect the world oil market. And the answer, the only answer that we've really found to deal with that political risk, and that's whether you're a company or whether you're the world community, is through diversified resources. Don't be too dependent on one part of the world.
We need to recognize that the primary resources of this world lie outside of the United States and even North America. That many of these countries that we will rely on our energy needs are in very politically, economically, and socially risky areas. Looking at Africa, Middle East.
60% of the world's oil reserves lie in the Middle East. The second biggest portion of that in Iraq. Among the first objectives for American forces in the last Gulf War were Iraq's oil fields. But the calculation that access could be secured didn't work out.
I think one of the bitter ironies about George W. Bush's decision to invade Iraq, despite the many thousands of deaths and so on, is that it really hasn't given the U.S. any more control over that oil, but it has increased the U.S. military presence in the Persian Gulf, and now the U.S. has no choice but to stay in the Persian Gulf for the foreseeable future.
Even with the war over, hardly a week goes by in Iraq without attacks on drilling installations and pipelines. US military presence can't prevent them. A situation which is not without repercussions. The Gulf War has left the oil market more nervous and the price more volatile than before, and has pushed up America's oil consumption.
I just found numbers from the Pentagon that indicate that they're now consuming, the 140,000 troops in Iraq are consuming about 1.9 million gallons of fuel per day, and all of it has to be imported into Iraq. And so, you know, from a strategic standpoint for the U.S. military, it's a terrible situation.